The ancient concept of the evil eye, known in Hebrew as Ayin Hara, has protected Jewish communities for thousands of years through one simple principle. What you say matters as much as what you do. This isn't superstition for superstition's sake. It's a spiritual technology rooted in the Talmud, Jewish law, and centuries of wisdom about how envy, pride, and careless speech can literally attract misfortune into your life. In Judaism, the evil eye represents harmful negative energy created when someone looks at you or when you speak about yourself, with envy, ill feeling, or excessive pride. The Talmudic sage Rav observed a graveyard and made a chilling statement. 99 have died through an evil eye and 1 through natural causes. That's how seriously Jewish tradition takes this spiritual danger. But here's what most people don't understand. The evil eye isn't just about other people cursing you with jealous glances. It's about the words you speak that trigger divine scrutiny, attract envy, and separate your blessings from their spiritual source. Every time you use certain words or phrases, you're essentially raising a red flag in the heavenly court asking, do I really deserve this? Today you'll discover the 7 specific types of words and phrases that Jewish wisdom warns against, and practical strategies to protect yourself while still living authentically. Before identifying the dangerous words, you need to understand the mechanism behind Ayin Hara. The evil eye operates on 3 levels, and all 3 are triggered by specific types of speech. First, there's the psychological dimension. When you boast or draw excessive attention to your blessings, you provoke envy in others, and that envious energy has real consequences. Jewish tradition teaches that all that terrible emotion people hold inside, frustration, anger, hate, the burning feeling of wanting what someone else has, gets channeled through the evil eye, giving it power. Second, there's the spiritual dimension rooted in the 10 Commandments' prohibition against coveting. Medieval Jewish sages explained that negative energy emanates from a person's eyes when they gaze upon something with ill feeling. But the Chabad Rebbe Rabbi Dov Ber Shnuri clarified that the eye isn't the physical organ. It's the eye of the mind, the spiritual vision of the intellect. Third, and most critical, there's the divine dimension. God judges with kindness and doesn't normally scrutinize people in the strictest manner. But when someone looks at another's good fortune with envy and essentially asks, how come that person has that? Or when you boast about your blessings, it arouses harsh judgment from above. Suddenly the heavenly court examines whether you truly deserve what you have. The Talmud teaches that a man is judged every day, and bragging about your good fortune demonstrates a lack of gratitude. On Judgment Day, that could backfire catastrophically. The first category of dangerous words involves bragging about your physical well-being. Jewish tradition specifically warns against making statements like, I never get sick, I'm in perfect health, or I haven't been to a doctor in years. Why is this so dangerous? When you boast about excellent health, you're essentially challenging the universe to prove you wrong. You're also triggering envy in those who are struggling with illness, whose silent resentment creates negative spiritual energy that affects you. The Talmud's teaching that people are judged daily means your health status isn't a permanent achievement. It's a daily gift. Bragging about it shows ingratitude and invites divine scrutiny. The Jewish solution is to acknowledge health blessings with humility. Instead of, I'm never sick, say, I've been feeling well, bli ayin hara, without evil eye, or Baruch Hashem, thank God. This simple phrase indicates you bear no pride about your fortune and recognize its divine source. In Yiddish-speaking communities, people add kein ayin hara after any health statement, literally meaning no evil eye. Many also spit 3 times, making a poo-poo-poo sound as additional protection. While this might seem theatrical, it serves as a powerful reminder to speak with humility about blessings. The second dangerous category involves openly discussing financial prosperity or material possessions. Statements like, I just closed a huge deal, look at my new car, or my investments are doing incredibly well, all invite the evil eye. The Talmud explicitly teaches, blessing only rests on that which is hidden from the eye. Another version states, blessing is only found on whatever the eye has no control over. When you flaunt wealth, you remove it from that protected, hidden space. This principle appears throughout rabbinic literature. Drawing attention to material success raises the question in the divine realm. Do you really deserve all this luck? That envy can boomerang back on you, leading you to lose the good fortune you flaunted. Modesty, or tzniut in Hebrew, is the Jewish remedy. While this term usually refers to modest dress, it equally applies to displaying blessings. Rabbi Shimon teaches in Berakot 55b that blessings rest in places that are modest and hidden. By keeping achievements and wealth private, you minimize envy from others and avoid spiritual danger. This doesn't mean hiding success dishonestly. It means not unnecessarily broadcasting it. Practice modesty in speech, dress, and behavior to reduce the likelihood of attracting jealousy. The children of Israel in the desert were protected because no tent opening looked onto the opening of its neighbor. They say, practiced noteworthy modesty and didn't cast eyes on others' possessions. The third word type that invites evil eye involves complimenting children or family without proper precautions. Parents instinctively want to celebrate their children's beauty, intelligence, or achievements, but Jewish wisdom warns this can backfire spectacularly. The custom exists not to call two brothers or a father and son up to the Torah consecutively, specifically because of the ayin hara that comes from drawing too much attention to a single family. This shows how seriously Jewish law takes the danger of highlighting family blessings. In rabbinic texts, Sarah allegedly cast an evil eye on Hagar while pregnant, causing a miscarriage. Leah's fertility was reportedly impacted when she became subject to the power of the evil eye, for thanking God for bearing more than a fourth of Jacob's sons. These stories aren't just ancient mythology. They're warnings encoded in Jewish tradition about the vulnerability of children to envious energy. When you must praise children, always add the protective phrase. Say, my daughter is beautiful, kein hara, or he got straight A's, bli ayin hara. This indicates you bear no jealousy if you're praising someone else's child, or you're expressing gratitude rather than pride if discussing your own. The phrase essentially functions as a Jewish knock on wood, a verbal shield against misfortune. Many Ashkenazi Jews contract it to sound like kenayin hora or kinahora, making it flow naturally in conversation. The fourth dangerous practice involves explicitly counting people by number. Jewish tradition teaches this so strongly that it's encoded in religious law. The evil eye is also the reason why we don't count people. This prohibition stems from a deeper spiritual principle about the vulnerability created when you quantify human beings. When you count people directly, saying 1, 2, 3, you're treating them as discrete, separate entities rather than parts of a unified whole connected to the divine source. The Kabbalistic explanation is that counting separates things from their spiritual vitality. When you present someone as an independent entity, rather than recognizing they come from God, you essentially cut them off from their divine source and the blessing within them. Jewish communities developed alternative counting methods to avoid this danger. The most common is counting a minyan, the 10 men required for communal prayer, using a 10-word biblical verse, assigning 1 word to each person. Another method involves counting not 1, not 2, not 3, rather than direct numbers. This principle extends beyond religious contexts. When discussing business success, don't say I have 47 employees or we served 300 customers today. Instead, use approximate language. We have around 50 people on the team, or we served hundreds of customers. This removes the precise quantification that invites scrutiny. The fifth word category involves making confident predictions about future outcomes. Statements like, this deal will definitely close, I'm certain I'll get the promotion, or we're guaranteed to succeed, all trigger the evil eye mechanism. Jewish wisdom teaches that excessive confidence about the future demonstrates presumption. You're essentially deciding outcomes that belong to the divine realm. When you announce future success before it materializes, you're inviting the heavenly court to ask, are you sure? Let's examine this closely. The Talmud's teaching that blessing rests on what is hidden applies particularly to future plans. When you broadcast intended outcomes, you remove them from that protected space. The protective approach is adding bli neder, without vow, or im yirtzeh Hashem, if God wills, to any future statement. This acknowledges that outcomes depend on forces beyond your control. Say, I'm hoping to close the deal im yirtzeh Hashem, rather than, I will definitely close the deal. This practice appears throughout Jewish discourse. The phrase bli neder specifically protects against accidentally making a vow that creates spiritual obligation. If you say, I'll donate $1,000 if this happens without bli neder, Jewish law considers it a binding vow. Adding the phrase keeps your speech in the realm of intention rather than obligation. The sixth dangerous word type involves making comparisons that emphasize your advantages over others. Statements like, "At least I'm not struggling like them," "Thank God my kids aren't like those troubled ones," or "My situation is so much better than theirs," all attract the evil eye. This speech pattern is particularly insidious because it feels like gratitude, but it's actually disguised pride laced with judgment. When you express relief at not experiencing others' misfortunes, you're simultaneously highlighting their pain and your good fortune, which creates maximum envy potential. The evil eye is fundamentally weaponized jealousy, frustration, envy, anger, and hate channeled through envious observation. When you make unfavorable comparisons, you're essentially doing the work of the evil eye yourself, pointing out disparities that trigger resentment. Jewish ethics teaches compassion and avoiding judgment of others' circumstances. The protective alternative is expressing gratitude without comparison. "I'm grateful for my blessings," rather than "I'm grateful I'm not in their situation." This maintains humility while acknowledging your good fortune. The Maggid of Mezrich taught that when you look at something in a positive way, you recognize how it comes from God, and this brings forth even more blessing. But when you gaze with an evil eye, even when you praise something but don't truly recognize that all is from God, you present it as its own entity, separating it from its divine source. The seventh and final category isn't precisely words, but rather the practice of openly admiring or discussing others' fields, crops, businesses, or possessions. The Talmud explicitly states, "It is prohibited for a person to stand in another's field and look at his crop while the grain is standing, because he casts an evil eye upon it and thereby causes him damage, and the same is true for a garden." This prohibition appears in Bava Batra 2b9 and represents a serious concern in Jewish law. The words you speak while admiring others' blessings, even complimentary words, can inadvertently cause harm through the evil eye mechanism. When you gaze at someone's standing grain, successful business, or impressive home and say, "Wow, look at all this," you're directing attention and potentially envy toward their blessings. Even if your intentions are pure, your words and gaze can trigger the scrutiny mechanism. The solution is practicing the same modesty toward others' possessions as toward your own. Don't unnecessarily draw attention to what others have. If you must compliment, immediately add Kain Ayin Hara to indicate you bear no jealousy, and bless them that the evil eye should have no power. The children of Israel were protected from Bilam's attempted curse because no tent opening looked onto the opening of its neighbor. They practiced modesty by not seeking to cast an eye upon other households' goings-on. This merit of not gazing enviously at others protected them from the evil eye. While avoiding the 7 dangerous word types provides primary protection, Jewish tradition offers additional strategies to ward off the evil eye. Recite protective prayers and verses. Many Jews recite Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing from Numbers 6:24-26, Shema Yisrael or Psalm 91 as protective measures. Some say Ben Porat Yosef from Genesis 49:22 before leaving home, invoking the protection of Joseph, who is traditionally considered immune to the evil eye. The Talmud teaches that Joseph's descendants are immune to the evil eye's power. One who fears the evil eye should hold the thumb of the right hand in the left hand and the thumb of the left hand in the right hand while reciting, "I, so-and-so son of so-and-so, come from the descendants of Joseph, over whom the evil eye has no dominion." Practice comprehensive modesty. This extends beyond speech to dress, behavior, and lifestyle choices. Don't be overly flashy or flaunt wealth and good fortune. Keep achievements and blessings private when possible. Study Torah and Jewish texts. The Kli Yakar teaches that the tents that protected Israel from the evil eye are synonymous with studying Torah, Jewish law, and tradition. Spiritual study creates a protective shield against negative energy. Maintain positive perspective. The Talmud states, "One who is not troubled by it will not be troubled by it." Don't obsess over the evil eye, and it won't bother you. When you view your blessings and others' blessings with a kind, grateful eye, recognizing everything comes from God, you bring forth blessing rather than curse. The evil eye teachings contain profound wisdom beyond superstition. They're essentially a spiritual technology for maintaining humility, gratitude, and awareness of interconnection. When you avoid boastful speech, you cultivate gratitude. Instead of taking credit for achievements, you recognize them as gifts requiring thankfulness. This shifts your consciousness from entitlement to appreciation. When you refrain from making envious comparisons, you develop compassion. You stop measuring your worth against others' misfortunes and instead see all people as deserving dignity. When you keep blessings modest and hidden, you practice non-attachment. You learn that possessions and achievements don't define you. They're temporary blessings passing through your stewardship. When you add protective phrases like Kain Ayin Hara, you maintain spiritual awareness. You remember that forces beyond your control influence outcomes, keeping you humble and dependent on the divine. The Maggid of Mezrich's teaching encapsulates the entire philosophy. Everything is considered as naught before God, as there is no true independent existence outside of God. When you look at something positively and recognize it comes from God, you bring forth blessing. When you gaze with an evil eye, presenting things as independent entities separate from their divine source, you cause loss of blessing. Jewish wisdom doesn't want you living in paranoid fear of every word you speak. The Talmud specifically states that if you're not troubled by the evil eye, it won't trouble you. The key is internalization rather than anxiety. Make these 7 principles part of your natural speech patterns. Express health blessings with gratitude. Keep wealth modest. Praise children with protection. Avoid direct counting. Qualify future predictions. Skip unfavorable comparisons. And don't gaze enviously at others' possessions. When these become habitual, you're not constantly monitoring every syllable. You're simply speaking from a place of humility, gratitude, and spiritual awareness. This naturally protects you while making you a more gracious, compassionate person. Remember the positive dimension. If negative gazes and words can cause harm, imagine what positive perspectives can accomplish. When you view others with generosity, recognize their divine source, and speak with kindness, you channel blessing into the world. Make it your practice to look at everything, your blessings and others' blessings, with a kind, grateful eye. This transforms you from a potential target of the evil eye into a channel for positive energy. To implement this wisdom immediately, create a mental checklist based on the 7 word types. Before discussing health, ask, am I boasting or expressing gratitude? Add Baruch Hashem or Bli Ayin Hara to health statements. Before mentioning wealth, ask, is this necessary to share? If yes, keep it modest and acknowledge the source. Before praising family, add Kain Ayin Hara. Make it automatic whenever discussing children or loved ones. When counting people, use indirect methods like verses or approximate numbers. Before predicting outcomes, add Im Yirtzeh Hashem or Bli Neder. Acknowledge uncertainty. When comparing situations, express gratitude without highlighting others' disadvantages. When admiring others' possessions, minimize unnecessary attention and add protective phrases if you must compliment. Teach these principles to family members. The phrases Kain Ayin Hara and Bli Ayin Hara should become household vocabulary, especially when discussing children, health, or good fortune. Many Jewish families make the poo-poo-poo spitting sound together, turning spiritual protection into family bonding. When you consistently avoid these 7 dangerous word types, you'll notice a profound shift, not just in external circumstances, but in your internal state. You'll become more humble as boastful speech decreases. You'll become more grateful as you constantly acknowledge the divine source of blessings. You'll become more compassionate as envious comparison disappears from your vocabulary. You'll become more present as you stop presuming future outcomes. You'll become more content as you stop measuring your worth against others. These transformations are the true protection against the evil eye. When you embody humility, gratitude, compassion, presence, and contentment, you naturally align with the flow of blessing. You stop creating the conditions that attract scrutiny, envy, and harsh judgment. The evil eye teachings aren't primitive superstition. They're sophisticated wisdom about consciousness, speech, and spiritual energy that remains just as relevant today as when the Talmudic sages first recorded them. By learning which words invite misfortune and which invite blessing, you gain practical tools for navigating life with grace, wisdom, and protection. May you speak with wisdom, live with humility, and be protected from all harm, Bli Ayin Hara.